breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger. The King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder. The King of glory, the King above all kings. Sing, this is amazing grace. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order, who makes the orphans a son and daughter. The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Let's lift our voices as we sing, worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, 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 oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. All that you've done for me. All that you've done for me.
And I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, and I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us.
Lift it up today. You're perfect in all your ways.
You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. It's love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. A peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, your good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us.
Lord, you are perfect in all your ways. Church, you may be seated.
Well, good morning. Hey, y'all made it in. All right, I am so sick of this weather. Okay, I'm just gonna say it out right now. So I have some bitterness in my heart, but you pray for me and we'll get over it. Spring's coming, summer's coming, and I'm gonna love it even more. All right, we're excited. How many slid in today? I did. I got out on I-70 and then pulled off around Blue Springs, told my wife, don't come to I-70, and I was fishtailing and having a good old time, but then I got reminding that I'm an adult and I have insurance and payments and all that kind of stuff. So it's just glad that we're here today. It is what it is, and so God's going to be with us today while we're here because we're inside, we're warm, and we're having a good time, all right? So, hey, just a couple things to keep you aware of. Baptism has been moved to March 31st, our big baptism that we're going to do through the year, because we're praying by then, none of this will be here, all right? And so it'll be March 31st. We're praying about that. And so if you were going to get baptized, you still want to sign up, you missed it, March 31st, we'll be here, and that's where we're going to do our baptisms. And then the We Believe class will be moved to March 10th. All right, that was for the kids. We want to make sure that all the kids have the opportunity to go through that class with their parents, We Believe. So that'll be moved to March 10th. So we have that opportunity so we can get some of this behind us a little bit too, so the kids can get invited and learn what baptism is all about. So that's a great class. If you have a kid that's interested, please do that as well. Sign them up, and that's a great class to be a part of as a parent, and the kids are together and learning about that. So that's awesome. And then just to let you know, just a reminder, please, as we give to our community, that we have Mother's Refuge that we're giving to this month. That's our cause that we're taking up money for this month. And so if you, at the end of the service, have a couple extra dollars you'd like to give, just drop it in one of those orange boxes on your way out. That goes straight to Mother's Refuge. All the money we collect goes to them. It's just to help our community and for us to be involved with them. All right? So ushers, come ahead. We'll receive our tithes and offerings. Let's go to the Lord in a word of prayer. God, we ask you today that you'll just be with our services. Bless us today. Lord, there's a lot of things that happened this weekend. There's a lot of things that went on that are out of our control. And Lord, we know that you're in control. And so I know that there's many people that are watching online right now that are home and they're safe. They couldn't get out. They couldn't be here. But, Lord, they're watching. There are people that are here that didn't make it out, and they're here today. And so, God, I ask you that you'll use our time of worship as a time that will speak to our hearts. Use the technology that we have that we're able to do so we can broadcast this through live feed. And we can be here today in a warm church that just is welcoming and inviting. And above all else, Lord, we're inviting you, which you're already here, and we know that, but God, we're inviting you into our lives today to speak to us. So use the message today. Speak through Pastor Ben, give him the words you need to say. And Lord, just have our time as we walk out of here today, knowing that we've met with you and that we've had a great time, and we can take what we've learned and use it this week to glorify and edify you, because that's really what it's all about. You're the best. Amen.
Hear the word roaring as thunder, with a new future to tell. For the dry season is over, there is a cloud beginning to swell. To the skies, heavy with blessing, lift your eyes, offer your heart. Jesus Christ, open the heavens, now we receive the Spirit of God.
Church, stand with us as we sing this.
We receive your we receive your aid. every seed buried in sorrow, you will call forth in its time. You are Lord, Lord of the harvest, calling our hope now to rise. We receive your aid. We receive your aid. We receive your aid. We receive your aid. Like a flood, we receive your love when you come like a flood, like a flood. We receive your love when you come like a flood, like a flood. We receive your love when you come like a flood, like a flood. We receive your love. Oh, your glory. And with great anticipation, we await the promise to come. Everything that you have spoken will come to pass. Let it be done. Oh, it shall be done. Every dream, every word, every promise, we receive your aid. We receive your aid. We receive your aid. We receive your aid.
Lord, we receive your reign here today, Lord. We receive your love and your mercy for us, Father. I thank you for bringing us all here safely, Lord, that we can come and worship you today. Right now, I pray for Pastor Ben as he comes and shares your words with us today. Help us to see you in a new and exciting way today, Lord. I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
To Eastside, we are so glad that you guys are here. We believe that this is the best place you could be this morning. Rain, snow, sleet, ice, whatever that junk is out there, grapple, whatever that is, right? We believe that this is the best place to be, and we're excited that you guys are with us. Like Pastor Don mentioned and Brian mentioned, I'm filling in for Pastor Fred this morning. He is away, and so, hey, just pray for him and his family as he's taking this weekend off. And, he asked me to fill in for him. And normally, hey, that's cool. It's an exciting thing. He asked me, hey, will you fill in? Will you take the lead this week? I'm like, sure, great. And he did something different this time, though. He's like, hey, can you fill in for me? I want you to continue in our series, How to Be a Fool. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, you've never asked me to continue in your series before. Is this like a message? Like, are you trying to, tell me something here? Like, Ben, you got this. Like, you got this, so why don't you take it this week? Now, he asked me to cover parenting, and here's why. If you don't know anything about me or my family, we have a lot of little ones that follow us around. We have, in our house right now, we have 10 kids in our home right now. And one of those with us right now is, we'll just say, our grandson. And so I'm 32. There's 10 kids in my home. One of those is a grandchild, which is crazy. And here's why that's interesting or different. We live at Drum Farm here in Independence. It's an incredible place that has this goal and mission when kids come into foster care to allow large sibling groups to be placed together so they're not split up into all different places. And so we have the opportunity to do that. They do lots of other stuff at Drum Farm that people don't even realize. It's an actual working farm. And the kids get to work and earn money and do all that stuff. And so that's really neat. They work with homeless youth, and they work with youth that are aging out of foster care. And so they do a lot of really cool stuff. And honestly, every time we're there, we're like I pull in every day. I'm like, this is a cool place. It's just something really neat and awesome to be a part of. And so we have a lot of kids in our lives, and we know a little bit about parenting. But I got to tell you this, if there's anything that makes you feel like you know how to be a fool, it's parenting. It's kids. They let you know, you don't have this figured out. And so I'll stand up here before you with lots of kids in my house, with lots of parenting classes, with a piece of paper from the state of Missouri that is really comical that says I'm a professional parent. There are no perfect parents. There's no such thing. They don't exist. There's not perfect kids, there's not perfect families, and there certainly aren't perfect parents. But parenting, it has its moments, right? It has its moments. It's really good sometimes, and you're really proud of your kids. And then there's moments where you are just in over your head, right? Jim Gaffigan has this skit, and he's like, I don't even know how many kids he has, 5 or 6. Someone's like, what's it like having 5 or 6? He's like, it's like you're drowning, and someone hands you a baby, and you're like, oh, blah. That's what parenting's like sometimes, right? It can be that way. This past week, actually, it was 2 weeks ago, we had some of this ice and this mess, and I had a couple of kids I had to take to an appointment downtown, so I took the day off. Not because the appointment was going to take the whole day, but I thought, hey, I'll get a moment. I'll spend the second half of the day doing nothing, which is rare. So that sounds really good. And so I'm like, all right, we get our appointment. It went really fast. And so I decided to take the kids, do some stuff downtown, and we hung out for a little bit. We had dinner somewhere. They thought it was awesome. We had fun. And guess what? I still had half my day left. So we pull into our driveway, and I say this. You've probably said it if you're a parent. Be careful. It's slick out there. And they did what every other kid in the world does and ignored me. And so they get out, and they're pushing and shoving each other, and I'm like, oh, great. And at this moment, this time, someone at the top of our hill, because we pull in the back of our house, is trying to get my attention. They're yelling, hey, Ben, 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 Ben. And I look up, I'm like, yes. And so we're having this awesome yelling conversation. You guys ever have one of those? You're not really sure what the other person's saying, and she's pointing to our front door, and the gist of it is this: there's someone at our front door. Someone's meeting with one of our older kids, and she's trying to get my attention. Hey, they can't get in, and all this stuff. And as that happens, I hear boom, thud. And I'm like, oh no. And I can hear this noise from the other side of the van. I can't quite see him, but I can hear him. It's like it's that noise where you're not sure if it's crying or laughing. And so I have one of the girls with us and one of the boys, and the boy is clear. It's laughter, without a doubt. And I'm starting to walk around the van, and it's icy everywhere. I'm taking it slowly, and I'm like, is everybody laughing, or are we crying? And as soon as I walk around and I see this puddle of something, I realize that this is not laughter. That's a lot of blood. And then at that time, the boy goes, "Oh, that's not funny." And I'm like, no, it's not. And so I have this lady, just you guys be in this moment with me, yelling at me like, "Hey, there's someone at your front door. They need help in." And I'm telling the kids like, "Hey, calm down, be safe." And then thud, and then blood. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I walk around and I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" And they're starting to be like that hyperventilating thing. That like, and then like she even asked me like, "Is it okay if I like say some words?" And I'm like, "Hey, let's try to calm down first. Let's see if we can like skip that step." You know, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, because there's people watching, we need to do this, like we need to look like we got it together as you have blood spilling out everywhere. And her brother, the boy who's with us, like continues the brotherly thing and is like, "You are messed up. Your face is bad." And so then comes the screaming. And at that moment, because she's fallen and the lady with drum, she's a really sweet lady, she gets the director because it looks like we need help, because at this point, I don't want to admit it, but I could use some help, right? I've got a couple kids and one is like, it looks like a crime scene has just happened. And that is when the director of Drum Farm walks out and she decides to begin the screaming. And not just, "Ah!" you know, and yelling at her brother, but those like words, those words I wouldn't use this morning, but if you fell and you hit your face like she did, you would probably use too. And she starts screaming them and everything. And mind you, someone is still at the front door. Parenting has its moments. We end up spending the rest of our day in the emergency room because that's what you get to do on your day off, right? And it was one of those moments and one of those days. And then, you know, we know that. We know that if you've had kids, if you've just watched someone with kids, you know that that's crazy. Having kids is wild. It's crazy. It just has its moments. And sometimes as a parent, you get to have fun and you get to make your own moments. Meaning like you get to like, you just see, there's something in you, maybe it's a dad thing, maybe moms do it too. You're like, I just need to like mess with them today. Like there's something like, they need like a little, they need me to like egg them on a little bit. I don't know what it is. There's something within me that like every now and then is like, hey, we're not having enough fun here. Like we need to mix things up. And I'm talking with Josh Balich, our student pastor, about this lesson. I'm like, I'm really looking for some videos of parents failing because I do that all the time. And so I think it'd be funny to watch other people fail. And I started looking at them, and honestly, a lot of them was like watching like child abuse. I'm like, I don't think I could show those. Those are more than fails. Like, that's bad. Why is YouTube allowing this? Like, we shouldn't show that. And he goes, well, Jimmy Kimmel did this thing. And so I got to show you this video because sometimes as parents, like, you have to create your own moments. Check this out.
I've been looking forward to this all week. Monday night on the show, I issued a new YouTube challenge, and the challenge was I'd like you to sneak up on your kids while they're playing Fortnite. The kids are nuts for this Fortnite, and turn off the TV. I asked, and many of you answered, and with that said, here are the results of, hey, Jimmy Kimmel, I turned off the TV during Fortnite.
What just happened? What? It just turned off. What? Badger, oh my gosh, Daddy, why'd you do that? Papi! Ya, es en serio. Papá! I'm getting away. Stop! Stop! No! Please, Matt! Stop!
Say hi, Jimmy Kimmel, and I'll turn it on.
Hi, Jimmy Kimmel.
Dad, what are you doing? I'm in the middle of Fortnite. What is wrong with you? Leave! What are you? Stop turning my TV on! What are you doing? Go cook! Stop!
Yeah, leave. Look, Jack. What do you want? Stop! Oh! You just shut down my Fortnite!
Jimmy, come on, make me do it!
Are you out of your mind?
I can't, Mom! What are you doing? What are you doing? My friend just died because of you.
I love that. I love how it ends. The mom cannot find the power to like turn that off. It's beautiful. It's marvelous. I don't know. Sometimes as parents, it has its moments. There's ups and there's downs, and sometimes you just have to make them. You just have to have fun with it. But parenting, it's hard. It's a difficult thing, and there's no redos, right? Like once it happens, you can't start over. There's no undoing it. They've experienced it. They've seen it, whatever it is. Maybe it's some trauma, or maybe it's some words that you used that caused trauma. But whatever it is, like you can't undo it. It's happened. And so it's a serious thing. It's hard, and it's a big deal. Parenting's a big deal because children are our future, which is scary sometimes, right? It's probably scary because of how we parent, right? It's a big deal. Parenting is really, really difficult. It's really, really tough, and it's not someone else's job. It's our job. Really, throughout Proverbs, we're in this series, How to Be a Fool, and Pastor Fred's been going through Proverbs. The sages make it pretty clear that it's the parent's role to pass along wisdom. It's the parent's role to be the ones that train the children. Look at this in Proverbs 19:18. It says this: "Discipline your children, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to their death." And it's our job. It's our job to be the ones that train and correct our child. In fact, I want us to do this real quick, to look at this word discipline and maybe change it for, I feel like a better word is correct. Not because I'm trying to change scripture really, but it can mean discipline, it can mean chastise, but it can also mean instruct or correct. And I feel like for us, discipline has a lot of weight to it. It can mean a lot of different things. But correct is it's just a much better word. In my world, this, a lot of times, if I'm being honest, it looks like abuse. Like when children come to our house, discipline to them, what it looks like a lot of times is abuse. And so I think a better way for us this morning to look at this is the word correct. Because people need correction. Children need correction. When we think about correction, it's not like breaking the child and so they do the right thing, breaking them. It's correcting them. It's showing them what the right way is, the right direction. And so I want us to think of it and look at it this way, that discipline or correct your children, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to their death. Correction is hard, but it helps a child. Correction is actually exhausting, right? If you have children, maybe you're even a grandparent, or you've seen children, correction is this thing that never ends. Like it's a constant, like they're going that direction, and you're like, you need to go that way, right? And it can be really simple like that. It gets a lot like messier all the time. We understand that, but correction, it's exhausting. Oftentimes, like it'd be easier just to give up, right? Just to opt out of parenting, to opt out of correction, and let them like figure it out on their own. But it's something that helps the child's future. Like it sets them up to know the right direction, the right way to go in the future, but it's also something that helps the parents out. It's good for adults as well. Proverbs 29:17 says this: "Discipline your children, and they will give you peace. They will bring you the delight you desire." And here's the problem with Proverbs, is oftentimes the sayings are so incredibly obvious that we miss like how good they are. Right? Like sometimes we can say something so like basic that we miss like the depth of it, right? And that's the trouble with the Proverbs and a lot of the sayings or the things that the sages wrote or witnessed and are trying to share is that it's just so simple, but it really is. When you discipline or you correct your children, they will give you peace. We know this, right? Like if you are showing a child like the right way to do something and they're actually, imagine this, if you will, parents. They're actually doing it. There's peace that comes with that. And there's delight. There's like this, I can step back because they're going to do the right thing. It's that age when you can leave them in the room alone and they won't like stick their fingers in electrical sockets, right? Or they won't like tear the TV down. That age that finally comes and you can be like, there's peace, there's delight in that. And this is so true. It's not just good for the child. It is. Like, we want to show them the right direction, but the truth is, it's good for us as well. And so it's our job to train or to correct a child, to give them instruction and show them the right way. And here's the thing. If you don't as a parent, someone will. Something else will. A child will adopt a set of values. The question is just whose values are they going to adopt? Like, they have so many influences in their life. I saw this statistic last week. University of California State University of Northridge released this study. It says by age 11, the average child has seen 8,000 murders on TV. That's a lot. And I thought, when I read that, I was like, that's crazy. That's absolutely not true. Don't believe it. I have a 10-year-old. So there's no way that in a year from now she's going to see 8,000 murders, because there's no way she's seen any now, right? Like, that can't be true. And so we're sitting yesterday in Dairy Queen, because why not, right? Like, it's a good idea. And we're sitting there in Dairy Queen, and she looks at me, Dad. She says, Dad, does everyone sweat when they die? I'm like, that's a really weird question to ask while I'm eating a Blizzard. Like, is that not cookie dough in yours? Like, what's going on here? She says it again, like, does everyone sweat when they die? I'm like, what are you talking about? And there's this TV, like, next to us over the side, and it's just this black and white, like, Westerner, and there's this guy who's just been shot, and he's just sweating, and it hit me, like, this happens all the time. We don't even realize it. There are things influencing their minds. By age 18, they say that the average kid will see over 200,000 acts of violence on TV. That's a lot, right? GrowingWireless.com says that the average kid 13 to 17 is on social media every day, like 51% of every kid 13 to 17 is on social media every day, which actually is surprisingly lower than I thought. Like, I thought it would be higher. YouTube is a growing trend. It's like taking over. Like, older people are on the social media thing, right, doing the Facebook, the Twitter. But a lot of younger kids, like, YouTube is their world. It's their thing where they can watch videos. And on there's tons of videos and advertisements. In fact, we don't even have good metrics for it. It's like millions of viewers and subscribers that are young. But, like, tracking children is kind of like a gray area, not necessarily the best thing for people to do. And so it's unclear. We just know there's millions of kids watching that. And what I'm trying to say this morning is not like, hey, these are all the things you need to shelter your child from. Not where I'm going with this at all. All I'm saying is that there are a lot of influences in their life. If it's not media, it's not tech, they have teachers, coaches, friends, a school culture. All of those things influence our child. And so I'm just getting at this, that if we don't step up to try to be influencers, someone else will. They are going to adopt a set of values. The question is, whose values are they going to adopt? Because this is the truth. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's a scary truth, that parents have the most influence. What a parent does will impact their child more than anything else. A parent is a better predictor of who a kid will become, their faith, their perspective, their self-esteem, their awareness of the world. The parent, even though there's phases of life where you're like, they don't listen to me, they only care what their friends do or say, the truth is how they're going to turn out, how they're going to end up, the person they're going to become, the parent is the biggest and greatest influencer in their life. It really is the parents. All those other things are temporary, but a parent's influence in the life of a child or a person is permanent. And maybe that feels overwhelming. Let me be honest. That's okay. It's okay if, like, seeing that being a parent, like, you're the biggest influence in who your child will become. It's okay if that, like, is overwhelming. I think there's something wrong. There's a red flag that goes up if parents don't, like, if their blood pressure doesn't rise a little bit when they realize, like, how important their role is. Because the feeling of overwhelmed is really the feeling that drives us to get help. It's a feeling that drives us to get help. And as parents, guess what? We need help. We need lots and lots and lots of help. So it's okay if it overwhelms us. We need help. And that's why I think it's important that we expand our influence. This is what I mean by this. In Proverbs, the thing that's happening here, this culture, this society is much different than our culture and our society. In their culture, their society, it was the parents that educated them. There were no private schools or public schools. They didn't send kids off to ES Kids to like learn who God is and learn character traits that are from the Bible or values. They didn't have that. They didn't have small group leaders. They didn't have student pastors. They didn't have that. It was the family. The family educated. The family trained them. When it was time to learn your trade, it was the family who did that. In fact, some studies say that a household could be made up of 80 people. Holy moly. That's a lot. Because their workload was so much to survive, to do life. They were surrounded by their family. They needed that. And that is so different than our world now. It's incredibly different. Maybe to think about like living with 79 of your relatives is kind of scary. No, it is scary, right? It is scary. But the reality of it is like you had help. Like children were raised in a set of values and everybody knew them. And it was just, this is the way. This is what you learned. This was, hey, if you were going to belong to this tribe, if you were going to belong to this family, if you were going to have like an identity, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to act. This is how life goes. This is how you survive. But it's so much different for our kids. And we've already talked about like the influences for them. Like we could go on forever. There are so many influences in their life. It's so much different than how it was here, but that doesn't mean that there's not wisdom here. I think it just means we have to contextualize it a little bit. We have to learn, like, what does this look like in our world, in our life, in our society? And so they had few influences outside the house, of the family. We have a completely different world. And the pressure of parenting, it's heavy. It's a lot because you can't be everywhere with your child. You can't. It's impossible. And you can't be everything for your child. Like, you can't be everything. It's impossible. You can't do it all. We have limits, and that's why we expand our influence. That's why we embrace good coaches. It's why we embrace good teachers. It's why we embrace good therapists. It's why we embrace good student pastors and small group leaders and family friends. It's why we expand our influence. We widen that circle and allow other people in because we need help influencing them. We need to choose the right influence. It's also why we are quick to get rid of bad coaches, right? Get rid of the people that influence them negatively because it does matter. The authority figures in their life do matter. I love this. I got to ask you this question. Because maybe you think like you could do it alone, and you'd be wrong, right? So I got this great question. When you were a kid, did you share everything with your parents? Like, I can hear the chuckles. It's funny. It's a funny question. The answer is no, never. Like, I can think of a million things I would never talk with my mom about. Not going to happen. And so here's the scary question. So if not you, who are your kids going to ask those questions to? I don't know about you, but I hope it's not my 10-year-old's like lunch neighbor at the lunchroom table at school. Like, I hope that those big, scary questions aren't for those friends. And this is the greatest thing that I believe the church has to offer. The greatest thing that our church has to offer, I really believe this, is the potential to create community for our kids. This is huge. To have a safe place where they can ask questions, to have a safe place where they can talk things out that are big and scary and that they're not so like comfortable asking mom and dad about. So parenting, it's hard, but it's our role to train them. It's our role to pass along this wisdom. And it's hard, and so we need to expand our influence. And correction is exhausting, but it's something we need to stay engaged in. It's something that we have to keep fighting for. Dr. Phil has this quote. It's kind of long, but follow with me. It goes like this. It is a time that as parents we say, I will not be intimidated by all the forces tugging on my children and family. I will not accept that disconnected children are just how it is these days. I do not accept the epidemics of oral sex, drugs, and alcohol in the middle and upper schools. I do not accept a child that appears deaf when I say, pick up your toys and don't hit your sister in the head anymore. I will not continue to parent out of fear that my kids won't like me if I require more from them. I will not feel guilty and go into debt trying to keep them in designer clothes and toys from preschool on up. I am not charged with being their friend. I'm charged with being their parent, their protector, their teacher, and their leader. Dr. Phil, from his book, Family First. It's a good quote. I love that quote because there's times as parents where it's hard. Like correction is hard. Parenting is hard, and we just want to give up, and we have to stay engaged. We have to stay engaged because the family is important. Like the house is important to fight for. Your child, their future, it's something that's important to fight for. And this is wisdom, like coming from Proverbs and other places, and I feel like it's necessary to say this. Like maybe you're sitting here this morning and you don't have children, and you're like, I don't see how this applies to me. I promise that it applies and it makes sense in a lot of areas. If nothing else, I think it's important that we as a church understand like our role. Like as a church, what does it look like if our goal is to reach young families? What is our goal for these young families? Right? What is our children's department doing over there? What are we hoping? What is the outcome? And so to continue with this, it's something that we need to keep fighting for, to stay engaged with. And this isn't about proving that you're in charge. I hate, like I passionately hate when my authority is challenged. Anybody else? Like I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'll go to a kid and I'm like, hey, can you help me with this? Maybe it's like take out the trash. Maybe it's something super simple. And then they just sit there on the couch and like give it a little bit. I'm like, hey. And they look and they're like, yeah. I need your help taking out the trash. Yeah, I heard you. I'm sorry, what? Like, why aren't you moving? I will. And they're still sitting there. Hey, I'm raging inside. Can I be honest with you? There's like steam coming out. I'm like, what? Like I said something. I need you to do it. Like not later. I don't need you to think about if you're going to do it. I need you to just do it. And so I hate it. I can't like exaggerate this feeling that's inside it. Like if you're a parent and you're in this moment and you feel it, you know it when your authority is like just being questioned even on the smallest thing, you're like, oh my gosh, I could like lose it right now. This whole house could explode. But this isn't staying engaged and fighting for your child. It's not about proving that you're in charge. It's not about being right. It's not about this fighting with your child. It's something so much more. There's a difference between fighting for someone and fighting with someone. Fighting for someone and fighting with someone. I had this previous job, and we were on this team working on a project together. This team comes together, and we're trying to think, like, what's the best way to handle this situation in the future? How is this going to be just this great thing? And so we come up with all these great ideas, and we're like, hey, this is the plan we're going to carry out. It's going to be awesome. And then the manager comes in and we start to share it, and instantly the manager, like maybe 2 sentences into it, is like, I don't like this idea. And we're like, well, hold on, like, no, stop. This is what we're gonna do. And we're like, whoa, what about this? And what about that? Like we do this every day. You're a manager, like not to be too mean, but like, have you thought about all these other things that we're gonna have to deal with? No, like I'm tired of talking about it, the manager says. I'm your boss, and you're going to do what I say, and you're going to do it how I say it. And there's this moment in the room where like all the air was sucked out, right? You've been there. And in that moment, I noticed that leader, that manager, he lost everybody in the room. He wasn't fighting for them. He was fighting with them. He was going to be his way or the highway. And you guess what? Like he got his way. Everybody did what he said because he was their boss and they want to get paid. But from that moment on, like he lost them. His leadership role was very different. He didn't have their heart. They were just going to follow his directions. And it can easily happen as a parent that you can win the fight. You're like, I'm your dad, I'm your mom, and you're going to do it this way because I'm telling you to right now, no matter what. You don't need to know why. It doesn't matter. Just do it, and you can win the battle, and they can take out the trash. But you've lost them. You've lost their heart. And in the future, it's just going to be harder and harder and harder. You can win the battle, and you can lose your child all at the same time. It's hard. It may be even impossible to fight for someone if you don't have a relationship with them. Get this. I want us to get this because I don't want to add another thing for parents to do. That's not like my goal this morning. I'm not trying to make parents feel guilty or shameful because we all mess up. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect kid. There's no perfect parent. It doesn't exist. There's no perfect formula that doesn't exist. But I want us to get this, that it's hard. It might even be impossible to fight for someone if you don't have a relationship with them. This is one of those things that's very true in parenting, and it's true everywhere else in life. If a child or anybody else doesn't see your heart, your love for them, then all they're going to experience, all they're going to feel, all they're going to know is your force. They're going to feel like you just want your way over their way. All the time in my house, I feel like I'm explaining to children, this is why we're going to do it this way. Like there's this fight, like I don't want to, and you can tell like in their eyes, in their face, the anger, like I don't want to do what you want me to do because you just want me to do it. And the trick is, the tough part is learning like their language, learning how to share with them like, this is what's best for you, this is what's best for the family, that's why we're going to do it. It's not just so Ben gets what he wants, Dad gets what he wants, it's because this is what's best. And it's tricky, it's difficult, there's nothing easy about it, but they need to know that you care about them, that you have a relationship with them, that this relationship matters more than like your force and your authority matters. Without a healthy relationship, they just see me as trying to get what I want over what they want. And staying engaged, it means not pulling away when it gets difficult. It means not pulling away what's important. It means being present for things that matter. It means showing a kid that you value them and you love them, this relationship with them over anything else. There's this story in the Old Testament. It's the whole nation of Israel. They have been freed from slavery in Egypt. And they are wandering around the desert for 40 years. So in Deuteronomy, Moses is recapping everything that happened. He's sharing with them the commandments and everything that's going on. And they're getting ready to finally, after 40 years of wandering around and just craziness, they're about to enter this place that God has told them, like, this is your land, this is your promised land. They're getting ready to enter that. And Moses shares with this to them in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 5 through 8. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. He goes on, but we'll stop there just because of time and everything. The point is this: as Moses is recounting their history and everything that they're supposed to do, there's all these rules, and they just keep getting them wrong. Like, they disobey God, and that's why they end up like wandering around, because they don't understand the heart of God. They probably don't understand the rules. And Moses, learning from his mistakes, he emphasizes this in the middle of all of this. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Moses knows that if he's going to pass on any type of like religion, if he's going to pass upon any type of faith, it has to be more than just rules. It has to be about the heart. It has to be about love. And he's sharing with them like God is getting ready to follow through what he has promised. He's going to do, like, you can trust God, not because of what you've done, not because of who you are, but because he is God. You can trust him. He's faithful. He's going to provide. You can trust him to do what he says. And so the most important thing that he emphasizes is that love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Love is the emphasis, because Moses isn't fighting for them to just get in line. Moses isn't fighting for them to just understand some commandments. Moses is fighting for their heart. And that is probably our biggest role as parents, is to fight for our kids' heart. Not because they earned it, not because of who they are, because of who we are to them. Children need to trust in their parents because of a loving relationship that's been built over time. It can be tricky sometimes, like parents do something nice for their child, and they think like in that moment you've earned like their love and affection for all eternity. It doesn't work like that. Relationships take time to build. They ought to take time to build, and the trust and the love and the heart that's built in that relationship over time is how we win our children. That's how we win our hearts. And kids like have this sneaky knack for picking up on like when we are hypocritical or when we're fake. Like they're really good at like calling you out and be like, well, you did it this way. And then there's that famous line, like, do as I say, not as I do, right? And that never, ever is effective. But like I feel like every parent has some like way of saying that at a different point in their life, right? Because you just need them to do what you say right then. But what we put into a child is oftentimes what comes out of that child. That's why we as parents are the biggest influencers in their life, because what goes in is often what comes out. There's this verse in Proverbs 20, verse 7. It says this: the righteous lead blameless lives, blessed are their children after them. Because what goes in is a lot of times what comes out. So there's this question, like, what character traits do you want to see in your child? Like, honesty is a big thing in our house. Like, I want them to be honest with us. And so if I want them to be honest, I shouldn't be surprised if I get a phone call about cheating if I just had a conversation with someone about this cool new way I learned to cheat on my taxes. Because how I live matters in how they're living, right? If I want them to respect authority and I get a call from their coach and saying, hey, practice was rough, like they had to run the whole time, they just did not listen to what I say, I shouldn't be surprised if every day when I come home from work, I have this crazy story about how my boss is a big moron. That would never happen for me, right? Like, it's not true. It's not true. I shouldn't be surprised that my kid doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, or they're not interested in this faith if they haven't witnessed within me an authentic interest in who Jesus is. How we live matters in how they will live. What we put in is what comes out. And again, as parents, we're the biggest predictor of how kids will live their lives. The do as I say, not as I do, doesn't work. It's ineffective. Just this past week, I got like a real glimpse of this. So, parenting fail. Here's one for you. We live at Drum Farm. There's a basketball gym at Drum Farm. My 3-year-old comes up to me, and you're going to be disappointed in me in this story. I'm just going to be honest. She walks up and she's like, where are the kids? I think, Jenny, you might have even been there for this. And I go, they're in the gym. And she says, I'm going to get in trouble. I don't know why. It's not that big a deal. Well, some of you will think it's a big deal. Some of you won't. She says, that's bull crap. It's my 3-year-old talking. So I say, I'm sorry, what? She repeats it. That's bullcrap. And I'm like, no way you're saying that. You're 3 years old. You can't say that. What are you saying? Bullcrap, Daddy. And I'm like, no, stop. That shouldn't happen. And I knew in that moment, more than likely, that wasn't something that the ES kids over here taught her. I knew in that moment it probably wasn't her preschool teacher that taught her that. I knew that it wasn't her mom. She doesn't use that word. I knew in that moment it wasn't Sesame Street or PJ Masks, her favorite show. I knew in that moment it was probably her dad. What we put in oftentimes is what comes out of them. That's how it works. And the same is true for us, by the way. For people still sitting here, not seeing how this relates to other relationships, the same is true for us. What we put into our lives is what comes out. If we want to be better parents, we got to listen to Moses. We got to love God with all of our heart, our strength, our soul. I got it all out of order there. But you get the idea. Like if we want to be better at loving others, we have to put that into us. What we put in is what comes out. It's true for us. It's true for our children. And that's how life goes. So, the moral of this morning is if you want to have perfect children, be perfect. Right? It's that simple. It's not attainable for kids to be perfect. It's not attainable for us. And I hope more than anything, this is like a reminder for us to be patient with them. I hope more than anything, it's a reminder for us to see that like we need help in this area. Like we need to expand this influence, that if we want to be better parents, like there's no perfect formula to this. But the most important thing is to have a relationship with him. Because you can share wisdom all day. You can live it out and be a perfect person. I don't know who you are, but like you could try that. You could be that. And all at the same time, you could be ignored. I think we know that like kids can ignore us. I know that very well, right? Like it gets me heated. It gets me fired up. Proverbs 1, 8, 9, last verses we'll look at this morning says, "Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck." The reason he says this is because it doesn't actually naturally happen most of the time. You get this? Like I stopped counting after 7, but this idea is repeated. Like, hey kids, listen to your parents. They might know what they're talking about. There's a reason that it's in the Bible, right? It's a reason that the sages mention it. It's just not this natural thing. And so kids can be told what to do the right way. And you can live it out, and they can still ignore you. It's true. It happens. We see it here all the time. I've worked with students, and it's always fun to see like how that kid is different than that kid, and they're in the same family. Like for the most part, they've had the same experience, but they're so different. It's kind of fun. It's pretty humorous, especially if you have kids and like you experience that. You're like, they're not the same. Like they're the same, but they're not the same. That happens. They have free will. They can ignore you because perfect kids don't exist. Perfect parents don't exist either. The big point that the sages are bringing out with parenting is that as a parent, your role, your job is to pass on wisdom. How to be a fool when it comes to parent is to opt out of parenting, to opt out of correction. How to be a fool is to pass on a fool by just throwing your hands up and like, well, whatever happens, happens. The school will teach them. The church will teach them. Like, they'll just learn from their friends at school. Like, that is scary. That's how you pass on a fool. The point is never to break them. Don't misread it like our job is to discipline them and get them to do the right thing. That is not their point. That's not what they're getting at. They're not talking about breaking children. Sometimes kids act like animals. Sorry. But they're not animals. They aren't. And so our role isn't to break them and get them to do the best thing. Our goal is to pass along wisdom to them. They have a will. They have a spirit. And when you break it, all you're doing is breaking your relationship with them. And so it's important to keep that relationship. The Chinese proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, or some variation of that, is so true. And so we need help. We need to expand our influence because parenting is tough and can't be everything all the time. So we got to find good help. And so I'll say this again. The church ought to be, and I really believe this, is the greatest help to a family. Because the potential for them to ask safe questions, to have a safe place to talk things out, to have a good community with good values and characteristics is huge. It's huge, and it's why it matters. It's why we invest in our kids area. It's why we want to reach young families, because that matters. And maybe I'm a little biased, but I think it might be one of the most important things, if not the most important thing that we do here, helping people discover and rediscover Jesus. It's the greatest resource we have in passing on these values and partnering with parents. And whether you believe that you have the greatest influence or not, your child is going to resemble you in some way, and not just physically. They are going to resemble the parents. What you do will rub off on them in some crazy way. It happens. What you do as a parent will influence their life. And so looking in the mirror is important. Looking at yourself, like honestly saying, like, do I want them to be this? Can I be honest with you? It's no fun. Like, that's really hard. But what happens here is going to show up in a lot of different little feet and faces and mouths and show up in a lot of different actions. And so it's important to grab a mirror and say, is this who I want them to be? What do I need to change so that they can be a better person? And remember, it's just blah, 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 blah to them without a relationship. It's just blah, blah, blah to them without a relationship. Because they have this crazy ability to know when you're faking it, when you're being hypocritical. They see it like a long ways away. They can smell it like miles away. And so a relationship's important. I think it's so important, it's something we should invest in. And I'll give you like a little tip or a little trick. The best way to invest in a child, like the easiest way. There's a million different ways to have a relationship with a kid. But I think through fun. Like, I know, it's like some of us that's hard, but the best way, maybe the easiest way to invest in a relationship with a kid is to invest in fun, to schedule it, to make a tradition out of it, to have time with them, to spend it over time and have that, because guys, still remember this, there's no perfect formula for this. There isn't. There's nothing that, like, you follow these steps and it's going to work out perfectly every time. That's not how it works. There's no secret producing perfect kids or perfect parents. It just doesn't happen. But building relationships is the goal. A relationship will not just get your kids to follow you better. A relationship will help you point them in the right direction. And we live in this crazy world where everything has to happen so quick, and we want quick fixes, and we want it right now. We want good kids to follow our directions right now, and it just doesn't work like that, because a relationship takes time. Values take time. Knowing someone's heart takes time. And so our goal for parenting isn't to pass on a lot of rules. Our goal for parenting shouldn't be that they just get in line. There's times where we need them to get in line, right? But our goal isn't about passing on rules. It's about having a relationship. The bottom line this morning is this, that wise parents build relationships, foolish parents build rules. The last thing I want is for us to leave and think like all the ways that we failed. I get it. Like, I have a long list too. I want us to have hope that at any point, any phase of life, even if they're out of your home, that the best way to have influence in your child is to have a relationship with them, and that can start today. Let's pray, and you guys can leave, fight this ice, get home safely. God, thank you so much for this morning. Really thank you for the privilege that we have to gather here and to worship you. God, thank you that we're able to lift you up. Thank you for the lives that you're working in. Thank you for the impact that this church is having on the community and will have on this community. God, we love you. In your name, amen.